They sold her
The
mother's
veil of
locket,
darkness parts
treated
for
her
me.
like a servant
Sir,
in
the
her own
shadows grow
father's
longer.
house,
Fear not.
called her
Walk with
worthless,
me.
invisible, a burden. But when the blind vampire king discovered her empathy gift, a power so rare only 1 in 10 million humans possess, everything changed. In 56 days, her stepmother went to prison for murder. Lyra became vampire royalty, and the invisible girl proved kindness is the greatest power of all. This is her story. The morning Lyra's life shattered started like every other morning in the Winters estate. She woke at 5:30. No alarm needed. Her body had learned the rhythm of servitude 2 years ago, the day they buried her father and Vivian Winters stopped pretending to be kind. The September air in Seattle carried that particular chill that promised rain by afternoon. Lyra stood at the kitchen window of the sprawling lakefront mansion, watching mist rise off the water like ghosts climbing toward heaven. Her father used to say the mist was full of secrets, things the lake wanted to tell but couldn't speak aloud. She wondered what secrets Edmund Winters had taken with him to the grave. The coffee maker hissed and gurgled. Lyra prepared the breakfast tray with the precision of a surgeon. Vivian demanded exactness. The china had to be Royal Doulton. Never the everyday set, the napkin folded into a perfect triangle, orange juice freshly squeezed, strained twice to remove pulp. Toast cut diagonally, crusts removed, butter softened to room temperature. Anything less meant a lecture. Or worse, the silent treatment that could last for days. Lyra carried the tray up the curved staircase, her footsteps muffled by Persian runners that cost more than most people earned in a year. The house still smelled like her father sometimes, pipe tobacco and old books. But those pockets of memory were fading, replaced by Vivian's preferred scents, gardenias, expensive perfume. The sharp chemical tang of whatever treatment kept her skin tight and her hair that impossible shade of honey blonde. She knocked twice on the master bedroom door. Enter. Vivian sat at her vanity, already dressed for the day in cream silk and pearls. She was 52, but it could pass for 40 with the right lighting. Her daughter Serafina sprawled across the chaise lounge, scrolling through her phone, still in pajamas despite the late hour. "You're 4 minutes late," Vivian said without turning around. Lyra set the tray on the bedside table. "I apologize. The juicer—" "I don't want excuses." Vivian's reflection met Lyra's eyes in the mirror. Cold, assessing, finding nothing of value. "Serafina has an announcement." Serafina looked up from her phone, a smile spreading across her face like oil on water. She was 28, 3 years older than Lyra, with the kind of beauty that came from good genes and better cosmetic work. Everything about her was calculated, even her joy. "I'm engaged," Serafina said, extending her left hand. The ring caught the morning light. Diamonds, massive, vulgar in their excess. "Congratulations," Lyra said softly. "Brandon Hartley proposed last night at Canlis. He's the heir to Hartley Tech, you know. 60 million in stock options alone." Serafina's eyes gleamed. "We'll be married next June. I'm thinking Tuscany. Or maybe the Amalfi Coast, somewhere appropriately elegant." Vivian turned, approval radiating from her like heat. "Finally, a daughter who's useful." The words landed like a slap. They were meant to. Lyra kept her face neutral. She'd learned that trick early. Never react. Never give them the satisfaction of seeing the wound. "Lyra, dear," Serafina said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "you'll help with the wedding planning, won't you? You're so good at menial things, details, the little tasks that bore the rest of us." "Of course," Lyra said. "Wonderful." Serafina returned to her phone. "Oh, and my room needs cleaning. The closet especially. I tried on 12 outfits last night, and everything's just everywhere." Dismissed, as always. Lyra descended the stairs, her hands trembling only slightly. In the kitchen, she allowed herself 3 deep breaths, then 4. Her father's voice echoed in memory. "Kindness is strength, Lyra Bell. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." But her father was dead. And kindness had gotten her nowhere except trapped in a house that should have been half hers, serving people who would never see her as family. The doorbell rang at precisely 9 o'clock. Lyra answered it, expecting a delivery. Instead, she found Sterling. He stood on the doorstep like a character from another era. 60 years old, ramrod posture, wearing a 3-piece suit despite the casual nature of Seattle society. His silver hair was immaculately groomed. His eyes, pale blue and impossibly sharp, assessed her in a single glance. "Miss Lyra Winters?" His voice carried a British accent, crisp as fresh snow. "Yes?" My name is Sterling. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Lucian Ashford. He produced a business card from his vest pocket. Heavy cardstock, embossed letters. He requests the presence of Miss Vivian Winters and her household this evening at the Autumn Charity Gala, the Fairmont Olympic Hotel, 7 o'clock. Lyra took the card. The weight of it surprised her. I'll let Mrs. Winters know. The invitation, Sterling said carefully, extends to you as well, Miss Winters. Mr. Ashford was quite specific. All members of the household. Something in his tone made Lyra look up. Sterling's expression remained neutral, but his eyes held a flicker of something else. Curiosity, perhaps, or pity. I don't usually attend these events, Lyra said. Nevertheless, 7 o'clock, the Fairmont. Sterling inclined his head, a gesture too formal for the casual American West Coast. Good day, Miss Winters. He walked to a black Maybach idling at the curb. The car pulled away in silence. Lyra closed the door, studying the business card. Ashford Enterprises. A name everyone in Seattle knew. Lucian Ashford had appeared in the city 5 years ago, a billionaire recluse who controlled half the commercial real estate in the Pacific Northwest. He never gave interviews, never appeared in public without dark glasses and a white cane. The skiing accident in the Swiss Alps had left him blind, or so the newspaper said. Vivian descended the stairs like a queen approaching her throne. Who was that? An invitation. Lyra handed her the card. To a charity gala tonight. Vivian's eyes widened, then narrowed. Lucian Ashford. The Ashford? Apparently. Why would he invite us? Lyra had no answer, but something twisted in her stomach, a premonition she couldn't name. The mist full of secrets. Her father's voice. The weight of that business card in her palm. The afternoon passed in a whirlwind of preparation. Vivian and Serafina transformed the master suite into a war room of beauty. Hairstylists, makeup artists. A personal shopper arrived with 6 gowns and garment bags. No one asked Lyra what she would wear. At 6:30, Lyra stood in her small bedroom, the smallest room in the house, the one that had been a storage closet before her father died, and pulled her only formal dress from the closet. Black, simple. 3 years old and slightly too big since she'd lost weight from stress. She did her own hair, her own makeup, minimal and careful. In the mirror, she looked exactly like what she was. A girl playing dress-up in a life that had never fit quite right. Downstairs, Vivian wore crimson silk that hugged her surgically enhanced figure. Serafina sparkled in champagne sequins, her engagement ring catching every light. They looked like they belonged at a gala, like they owned the very area they breathed. The hired car, a Mercedes S-Class because Vivian refused to arrive in anything less, pulled up to the Fairmont at 7:15. Fashionably late, Vivian called it. The hotel lobby glittered. Crystal chandeliers threw prisms across marble floors. Women in gowns that cost more than cars. Men in tuxedos, power radiating from them like cologne. The charity gala was Seattle's social event of the season. A chance to see and be seen, to network and climb and prove you mattered. Lyra felt invisible. She always did at these things. Vivian swept into the ballroom, Serafina at her side, both of them scanning the crowd for important faces. Lyra followed 3 steps behind, her role clear. She was background, furniture, something to make Vivian look charitable for including the poor stepdaughter. Vivian, darling. A woman in emerald green descended on them, air kissing Vivian's cheeks. More society matrons followed. The conversation turned to vacation homes and private schools, and wasn't it just tragic about the Henderson divorce? Lyra drifted to the edge of the ballroom. The waitstaff moved like dancers, carrying trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. One of them, a young man barely 20, caught her eye. He wore the same black and white uniform as the others, but his tie sat slightly crooked. Without thinking, Lyra reached out and straightened it. He startled, then smiled. Thanks. It was bothering me, Lyra said. You're kind, and I saw him. He adjusted his tray. Most people here don't even see us. I know the feeling. He moved on, swallowed by the crowd. Across the ballroom, Vivian had cornered someone important. Her laugh, high and practiced, cut through the ambient noise. Serafina stood beside her, posing, ensuring her ring caught the light at strategic angles. Then the room changed. Lyra felt it before she understood it. A shift in energy, conversations stuttering, heads turning toward the entrance. Lucian Ashford had arrived. He stood in the doorway, and the word that came to Lyra's mind was carved. Like someone had taken marble and chiseled away everything soft, leaving only sharp lines and dangerous edges. He was tall, easily 6'4", wearing a tuxedo that fit like a second skin. His dark hair was swept back from a face that could have belonged to a Renaissance sculpture. Strong jaw, high cheekbones, a mouth that looked like it had forgotten how to smile. But his eyes were hidden behind dark glasses, and his right hand gripped a white cane. Sterling stood at his elbow, a subtle presence, guiding without touching. The room held its breath. Lucian Ashford moved through the crowd like a king through conquered territory. People parted for him. Some stared with pity, others with fascination. A few with the calculating look of predators scenting weakness. Vivian's hand shot up. "Mr. Ashford, over here!" Lucian's head turned toward her voice, not quite accurately, his gaze fixed on a point 3 feet to Vivian's left. Sterling murmured something. Lucian adjusted. They approached. "Mrs. Winters," Lucian said. His voice was deep, controlled, with an accent Lyra couldn't place. "Old money, perhaps, or just old. Thank you for accepting my invitation." "The pleasure is ours," Vivian gushed. She touched his arm, bold, claiming connection. "May I introduce my daughter, Serafina?" Serafina extended her hand, not for shaking, but to be kissed. A princess gesture. "Mr. Ashford, I've heard so much about you." Lucian's jaw tightened. Barely. If Lyra hadn't been watching closely, she would have missed it. "Charmed," he said. His tone suggested the opposite. Serafina didn't notice, or didn't care. She stepped closer, invading his space with the confidence of someone who had never been told no. "I understand you are looking for someone to assist your mother. I'd love to discuss the position. I have extensive experience with elder care." A lie. Serafina had never worked a day in her life. "Is that so?" Lucian said flatly. "Oh yes, I'm very nurturing, very patient, and I have such a gentle touch." Lyra wanted to disappear. The second-hand embarrassment burned like acid in her throat. But then Serafina made a mistake. She touched Lucian's chest, fingers splayed across his lapel, proprietary and intimate. "Perhaps we could discuss it over dinner sometime. Just the two of us." Lucian went very still. The temperature in their small circle seemed to drop 10 degrees. Sterling cleared his throat. A warning. "I appreciate your interest," Lucian said, ice in every syllable. "But I've already made my selection." Serafina's smile faltered. "I'm sorry?" A waiter passed too close, his tray loaded with champagne flutes. Lucian's cane tapped against the waiter's shin. The young man stumbled. The tray tilted. Lyra moved. She didn't think, didn't plan, just stepped forward and caught the waiter's elbow, steadying him before the glasses could crash. "Careful," she said softly. The waiter's face flooded with relief. Thank you so much." "It's all right." Lyra guided him a step to the left, away from Lucian's path. "Maybe watch for the cane next time." "I will. I'm so sorry, sir. I didn't mean—" "No harm done," Lucian said. But his head had turned, toward Lyra. His dark glasses reflected the chandelier light, hiding his eyes. But she felt his attention like a physical weight, assessing, measuring. "And you are?" he asked. Lyra's throat went dry. "Nobody important, Mr. Ashford." "Lyra," Vivian said quickly, her voice tight with warning. "My stepdaughter." "Stepdaughter," Lucian repeated. He tilted his head slightly, like a predator listening for heartbeats in the dark. "Your voice, you have a kind voice." Heat crept up Lyra's neck. "Thank you." "Do you work, Miss Winters?" "I'm a companion," Lyra said. "I help care for Mrs. Winters and assist with household management." "A companion." Something shifted in Lucian's expression. The ice cracked just slightly. "Are you trained in elder care?" "I have certification in palliative care," Lyra said. "I worked at St. Jude's Hospital for 2 years before she stopped. Before her father died and Vivian decided she was more useful at home." "Before?" Lucian prompted. "Before family circumstances changed." Silence stretched between them. Vivian's hand tightened on her clutch, knuckles white. Serafina's smile had frozen into something brittle. Lucian turned to Vivian. "Mrs. Winters, I came tonight because I'm searching for someone. Someone with patience, compassion, the ability to see past surfaces to what truly matters." He paused. "My mother is dying. Cancer. She has perhaps 6 months. I need someone who can make those months bearable." "Serafina would be perfect," Vivian said immediately. "I'll take her." Lucian's hand lifted, pointing, directly at Lyra. The ballroom noise faded to a dull roar in Lyra's ears. "What?" Vivian's voice cracked. "Miss Lyra Winters," Lucian said clearly, "I'd like to offer you a position as my mother's companion. The salary is $250,000 per year, plus room and board at the Ashford estate." Lyra couldn't breathe. $250,000. More money than she'd ever imagined having. More money than her father had earned in 5 years. There must be some mistake, Vivian sputtered. Lyra isn't qualified. She steadied a falling waiter without being asked, Lucian said. She apologized to him before checking if I was all right. That tells me everything I need to know about her character. He turned back to Lyra. What do you say, Miss Winters? Say yes, some voice whispered in her mind. Say yes and escape. But fear held her frozen. This was too much. Too fast, too strange. I need to think about it, Lyra heard herself say. Lucian smiled. It transformed his face, softening those sharp edges into something almost human. Of course, Sterling will provide my contact information. Take the weekend. But Miss Winters? He leaned closer and Lyra caught his scent. Cedar and something darker. Older. Don't let anyone convince you that you're not qualified for better things. I suspect you're more capable than you've been allowed to believe. He straightened. Sterling materialized at his elbow. Mrs. Winters, Miss Serafina, a pleasure. The words were polite, the tone was dismissal. They walked away, Lucian's cane tapping a steady rhythm against the marble floor. Lyra stood frozen, her heart hammering against her ribs. Vivian grabbed her arm, nails digging through fabric. What did you do? I don't know. You will decline, Vivian hissed. Do you understand me? You will call tomorrow and decline. But no buts. This family has a reputation. I won't have you embarrassing us by pretending to be something you're not. Serafina's face had gone the color of curdled milk. That position was supposed to be mine. You'll decline, Vivian repeated. Her grip tightened until Lyra's arm went numb. Or you'll regret it. She released Lyra and stalked away, Serafina trailing behind like a furious shadow. Lyra stood alone in the ballroom, surrounded by hundreds of people and feeling more isolated than ever. But in her clutch, pressed against her phone, was Sterling's business card. And on the back, written in elegant script, Monday, 9 a.m., Ashford Estate. Don't be late. Lyra didn't sleep that night. She lay in her small room, staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation over and over. Lucian Ashford's voice, the way he'd smiled when she'd helped the waiter, $250,000. Freedom in the form of a salary she'd never dreamed of earning. But Vivian's threat echoed louder. You'll regret it. Sunday passed in tense silence. Vivian didn't speak to her. Serafina slammed doors and made pointed comments about loyalty and betrayal. The house felt like a pressure cooker, waiting to explode. Monday morning arrived too quickly and not quickly enough. At 8:30, Lyra stood in front of her closet, staring at her limited wardrobe. What did one wear to meet a dying woman and her billionaire son? She settled on gray slacks and a simple cream blouse. Professional, forgettable, perfect. The Ashford Estate sat 30 minutes north of Seattle, perched on a cliff overlooking Puget Sound. The driveway alone stretched half a mile, lined with old-growth trees that filtered the morning light into something ethereal. The house appeared through the trees like a secret being revealed. It wasn't a house. It was an architectural masterpiece. Glass and steel and stone, cantilevered over the cliff edge, defying gravity and good sense. Modern, but somehow timeless, powerful. Lyra's hands trembled on the steering wheel of her ancient Honda Civic. The car sputtered and wheezed, embarrassingly loud in the pristine silence. Sterling stood at the front entrance, waiting. Miss Winters, punctual, excellent. He opened her car door with old-world courtesy. Mr. Ashford is expecting you. Inside, the house smelled of cedar and something else, something Lyra couldn't identify. Expensive candles, perhaps, or just the scent of wealth beyond measure. Sterling led her through rooms that belonged in museums, original artwork, furniture that whispered of centuries past, floor-to-ceiling windows that turned the sound into living paintings. They stopped at a set of double doors. A word of advice, Miss Winters, Sterling said quietly. Mrs. Ashford can be unpredictable. She has good days and difficult days. On difficult days, she may say things that frighten you. Don't run, and whatever you do, don't scream. Lyra's mouth went dry. What kind of things? You'll understand when you meet her. Sterling knocked twice, then opened the door. Mrs. Ashford, Miss Lyra Winters, has arrived. The room beyond was a sanctuary. Soft lighting, comfortable furniture arranged to face the windows and their spectacular view. And in a wheelchair near the glass sat a woman who had once been beautiful and was still striking despite the illness eating her from within. Isolde Ashford was 78. Her hair, pure white, hung in a braid over one shoulder. Her face bore the elegant bones of European aristocracy, though illness had hollowed her cheeks and left shadows beneath her eyes. She wore a cashmere shawl wrapped around thin shoulders, but her eyes were sharp, alert, ancient. So, Isolde said, her voice surprisingly strong, "You're the girl my son chose." Lyra stepped forward. "Mrs. Ashford, it's an honor to meet you." "Is it?" Isolde's gaze traveled over Lyra, missing nothing. "Most people find dying women uncomfortable. We're reminders of mortality, of the inevitable decay waiting for all flesh. Everyone deserves dignity in their final days," Lyra said. "That's not uncomfortable. That's sacred." Isolde's eyebrows rose. "Sacred? An interesting word choice." She gestured to the chair across from her. "Sit. Tell me why you're here." Lyra sat, folding her hands in her lap to hide their shaking. "Your son offered me a position. And you accepted because you need the money?" "Partly. And the other part?" Lyra hesitated, then decided on truth. "Because he looked at me and saw someone capable. No one's done that in a very long time." Isolde smiled. It transformed her face, erasing years and illness. "You have kind eyes, child, but kindness alone won't survive this house." She leaned forward, and her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "My son has secrets, dark ones. If you stay, you'll learn them. And once you know, you can never unknow." "Everyone has secrets," Lyra said. "Not like his." Isolde's fingers gripped the arms of her wheelchair. "I'm dying, yes. Cancer. Stage 4, but that's not what will test you, Lyra Winters. What will test you is what I become when the pain gets too strong and the medication fails." "I don't understand." "You will." Isolde settled back, exhaustion creeping into her features. "Sterling will explain the basics, the medications, the schedule. But here's what matters. When I have an episode, don't run. Don't call for help. Just stay. Can you do that?" "I can try." "Trying isn't enough. Either you can or you can't." Lyra thought of her father. The stroke that had stolen his mobility, his speech, his dignity in those final months. She'd stayed through all of it, bathed him, fed him, held his hand while he wept at his own helplessness. "I can stay," Lyra said. Isolde studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Good. Now leave me. I tire easily these days, and I want to reserve my energy for terrorizing Sterling later." Sterling cleared his throat. "I heard that, madam." "You were meant to." Isolde waved a dismissive hand. "Go. Both of you. I need my nap." In the hallway, Sterling's shoulders relaxed minutely. "You handled that well." "She's direct," Lyra said. "I appreciate that." "She's dying," Sterling corrected gently, "and terrified, though she'd never admit it. The episodes she mentioned." He paused, choosing words carefully. "Mrs. Ashford sometimes experiences delirium, hallucinations. She becomes violent, throws things, screams. The previous companions couldn't handle it." "How many previous companions?" 14 in 6 months, the longest lasted 3 weeks. Lyra's stomach dropped. Why didn't they stay? "Fear." Sterling met her eyes. "When Mrs. Ashford has an episode, her eyes change. Her voice changes. She becomes someone, something else. And she says things. Terrible things that sound true." "What kind of things?" "You'll learn soon enough." Sterling gestured down the hallway. "Come, I'll show you to your quarters and explain the daily routine." The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of learning. Lyra moved into the estate on September 2nd, a Tuesday that dawned gray and drizzling. Her room was larger than the entire first floor of the Winters house. Private bathroom, a king-size bed with sheets that felt like water against skin, a desk overlooking the sound. She unpacked her few belongings, feeling like an imposter in a palace. The routine was strict, but manageable. Wake at 6, help Isolde dress. Breakfast together, always by the windows. Morning medications. Physical therapy exercises to maintain what mobility remained. Lunch, reading aloud in. Isolde loved classic literature and had strong opinions about endings. Afternoon rest, dinner, evening medications. Bed by 9. In between, Lyra learned the estate's rhythms. Lucian kept odd hours. Sometimes she'd hear him moving through the house at 3 a.m., his footsteps echoing off marble. He never slept, Sterling explained. Insomnia had plagued him since the accident. He worked from a home office on the 3rd floor, conducting business via phone and video calls. Running an empire from behind dark glasses and a carefully constructed persona of elegant helplessness. But Lyra noticed things. The way Lucian moved through rooms without his cane when he thought no one was watching. The way his head turned towards sounds with perfect accuracy. How he never bumped into furniture, even furniture that Sterling had rearranged the night before. She said nothing. Week 3 began with a test Lara didn't know she was taking. On Monday morning, she found a cash box on the library desk. Unlocked. Open. Stacks of $100 bills clearly visible. $50,000 at least. Lyra dusted around it, careful not to touch the money. Later, when she returned with Isolde's afternoon tea, the box was gone. On Wednesday, an antique bracelet appeared on the bathroom counter. Diamonds and sapphires set in platinum. Worth a fortune. Lyra picked it up, turned it over in her palm. Beautiful, delicate, valuable. She found Sterling in the kitchen. This was in Mrs. Ashford's bathroom. I think she forgot she took it off. Sterling took the bracelet, his expression unreadable. Thank you, Miss Winters. Of course. That night, through the heating vents, Lyra heard voices. Sterling and Lucian, speaking in the study below her room. She didn't take the money, Sterling said. No, Lucian's voice, thoughtful. She didn't. The bracelet either. Returned it immediately. What does that tell you? That she's honest? Or an exceptionally patient thief waiting for a larger prize? Lucian laughed. It was a rusty sound, like a door that hadn't opened in years. You're cynical, Sterling. I've served you for 40 years, sir. I've earned my cynicism. Fair enough. Continue the test. Lyra lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. They were testing her. Of course they were. Rich people didn't trust easily. She'd read enough novels to know that. The question was, why test her if they'd already hired her? Week 3, Day 4. Thursday, September 16th. Lyra entered the library carrying Isolde's afternoon tea to find Lucian standing by the window. Without his cane. Without Sterling. Just standing. Looking out at the sound with an intensity that should have been impossible for a blind man. Lyra froze. Don't stop, Lucian said without turning. Bring the tea. Mother will be irritable if it gets cold. Lyra forced her feet to move. She set the tray on the low table, her hands steady through sheer force of will. You have questions, Lucian said. Many. Ask one. Lyra chose carefully. Can you see? Silence. Long enough that she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, define see. Light, shapes, colors, the world. I see what I need to see. Lucian turned, and for the first time his dark glasses caught the afternoon light at an angle that let her glimpse his eyes behind them. Blue. Impossibly, vividly blue. Not the pale blue of winter skies, but the deep blue of ocean depths. And they were focused directly on her face. I need to check on your mother, Lyra said, her voice barely steady. Run away, Miss Winters. That's probably wise. But Lyra didn't run. She walked, slowly, with dignity, and in the hallway she leaned against the wall and tried to remember how to breathe. That evening, Isolde had her first episode since Lyra's arrival. It started during dinner. Isolde had been eating soup, talking about a book she'd read in her youth. Then mid-sentence she stopped. Her spoon clattered against the bowl. The shadows are moving, Isolde whispered. Lyra set down her own spoon. Mrs. Ashford? Isolde's head turned slowly. Too slowly. They're always moving, crawling up the walls. Hungry. So hungry. You're safe, Lyra said calmly. You're in your room. You're having dinner. You're safe. Safe? Isolde laughed. It sounded like breaking glass. Nothing's safe, not in this house. Not with him. With who? My son. Isolde's eyes widened. My beautiful, terrible son. Do you know what he is, little bird? Do you know what sleeps in the room above yours? Lyra's pulse thundered in her ears. Mrs. Ashford, you're confused. The medication. I'm not confused, Isolde surged forward, her frail hands gripping the table. I'm dying because I know too much, because I see what everyone else refuses to see. He's not blind. He never was. And he's not. The door crashed open. Lucian stood in the doorway, still wearing his dark glass, despite the late hour. Mother, enough. Tell her, Isolde hissed. Tell her what you are before she finds out the hard way. Sterling, Lucian called. Sterling appeared with a syringe. He moved behind Isolde's chair, gentle but firm. I'm sorry, madam. Doctor's orders. No, I need to warn her. I need... Isolde's words slurred as the sedative took hold. Her eyes fluttered. Run, little bird. Run before you can't. She slumped in her wheelchair, unconscious. Sterling and Lucian lifted her carefully, carrying her to the bedroom. Lyra stood frozen at the table, her dinner congealing in its bowl. When they returned, Lucian dismissed Sterling with a gesture. Then he removed his glasses. His eyes were blue, Arctic blue, predator blue, and they glowed faintly in the dim light. You're still here, he said. Should I have left? Most people would have. Lucian moved closer, not threatening, just present, filling the space with something that felt both dangerous and magnetic. My mother said things you probably want to ask about. Are they true, oh? Which part? Any of it. Lucian smiled. It was set and ancient and beautiful. The relevant truth, Miss Winters, is that my mother is dying, and in her death spiral, she's grasping at old fears and half-remembered nightmares. Nothing she says during episodes should be taken seriously. You didn't answer my question. No, Lucian agreed, I didn't. He replaced his glasses and the illusion of helplessness returned like a costume being donned. You've exceeded expectations, Miss Winters. You didn't run, you didn't scream. You tried to comfort her even when she was speaking madness. She's frightened, Lyra said. Dying people often are. They don't need judgment, they need compassion. Is that what they teach in palliative care training? That's what my father taught me. Something shifted in Lucian's expression. Your father, Edmund Winters, he died 2 years ago. You researched me. Of course I did. You're living in my house, caring for the only person I love. Lucian tilted his head. He had a stroke. You cared for him for 3 months before he died. Yes. Did he have episodes, confusion, fear? Yes. And did you stay? Lyra's throat tightened. Every day, every night, until the end. Lucian nodded slowly. Then you understand. This isn't about my mother's delusions. This is about whether you can be present for suffering without trying to fix it. Because, Miss Winters, suffering can't always be fixed. Sometimes it just has to be endured. I know. Do you? Lucian stepped closer, close enough that Lyra could smell cedar and darkness. Because if you stay, you'll see things, hear things, experience things that will test everything you believe about the world and your place in it. Is that a threat? It's a promise. He reached out, his hand hovering near her face but not touching. Last chance, Lyra Winters. Walk away now. I'll give you a generous severance. Excellent references. You can find another position somewhere safe and normal and boring. Lyra thought about the Winters estate, about Vivian's cold contempt and Seraphina's casual cruelty, about years of being invisible, worthless, forgotten. I'm staying, she said. Lucian's hand dropped. Why? Because Isolde needs me, because I need this, and because... She paused, then decided on brutal honesty. Because you're the first person in 2 years who's looked at me and seen someone capable of more, even if I'm not actually looking. Especially then. Lucian laughed, really laughed. The sound filled the room like music. You're dangerous, Miss Winters. So I've been told. He left her standing in the dining room, his footsteps fading into the depths of the house. Lyra cleaned up the dinner dishes, her hands steady despite the adrenaline still fizzing in her veins. Week 4 arrived with autumn rain. The test continued. A watch, a rare book, a credit card carelessly left in her bathroom. Lyra returned them all. Isolde had good days and bad days. On good days, they talked about everything. Books, music, the impossible beauty of the sound. On bad days, Isolde screamed about shadows and monsters and warned Lyra to run. Lyra never ran, and Lucian watched. She felt his attention even when he wasn't in the room. Felt the weight of his assessment, his curiosity, his slowly thawing skepticism. September 23rd dawned gray and cold. Lyra helped Isolde through her morning routine, then settled her in the library with tea and a novel. Isolde seemed stronger today, color in her cheeks, light in her eyes. Read to me, Isolde requested. Lyra picked up the book, Jane Eyre. They'd been working through it for a week, and Isolde had opinions about Mr. Rochester that would make scholars weep. Chapter 15, Lyra began. The door opened. Lucian entered, dressed in dark slacks and a charcoal sweater that made his already pale skin look carved from ice. He carried a white cane, tapping it against the floor in the performance of blindness. Mother, Miss Winters. Lucian. Isolde set down her tea. You're up early? Couldn't sleep. Thought I'd join you for the reading. He navigated to his chair, the one by the window, with the careful precision of someone memorizing space. But Lyra had rearranged the furniture yesterday to give Isolde a better view of the rain. That chair was now 3 feet to the left. Lucian walked directly to it, sat down without fumbling, crossed his legs, and folded his hands as if he'd always known exactly where that chair would be. Lyra kept reading, but her mind raced. He can see. He's always been able to see. Continue, Lucian said when she paused. Lyra read, her voice steady, her heart hammering. The scene unfolded. Mr. Rochester's past revealed. Jane's moral struggle. The impossible choice between love and integrity. She should leave him, Isolde said when Lyra paused for breath. A man who lies, even with good intentions, can't be trusted. Perhaps, Lucian murmured. Or perhaps Jane understands that people lie because they're afraid. Afraid of being known. Afraid of being rejected for their true selves. You're defending Rochester? I'm defending the human need for masks. Nothing human about Rochester's situation, Isolde said pointedly. Mother and son locked eyes, a conversation happening beneath the conversation. Secrets shared and withheld. Miss Winters, Lucian said, turning to Lyra. What do you think? Should Jane stay or go? Lyra closed the book. Jane should demand the truth, then decide. And if the truth is monstrous, then she deserves to know what kind of monster she's dealing with before making her choice. Isolde smiled. Smart girl. Dangerous girl, Lucian corrected, but he was smiling too. The moment shattered. Lucian stood, reaching for his cane. He moved toward the window, tapping the floor. 1 step. 2. 3. On the 4th step, his foot caught the edge of the Persian rug, the rug Lyra had straightened just this morning, the one that lay perfectly flat against the hardwood. Lucian stumbled. His hands shot out, grasping for something to steady himself. Found the pedestal holding the Ming Dynasty vase. The pedestal wobbled. The vase tipped. Lyra didn't think, didn't calculate, just moved. She threw herself between Lucian and the falling vase, her arms wrapping around him as they went down together. Her back hit the carpet with brutal force. Lucian's weight crashed on top of her, knocking the air from her lungs. The vase hit the floor. The sound was catastrophic. $1 million of history shattering into pieces. Silence. Lyra couldn't breathe. Pain radiated from her spine where she'd hit the floor. Lucian's body pressed against hers, solid and heavy and impossibly cold. He pushed up onto his elbows, hovering over her. His glasses had fallen off. His eyes, that impossible blue, stared directly into hers. Are you hurt? He demanded. Can't breathe. Lucian rolled off her immediately. His hands, gentle and sure, ran down her arms, checking for breaks. Ribs? Back? Talk to me. Lyra sucked in air. Just winded. I'm okay. You're not okay. You just cushioned a 200-pound man with your spine. Better than you cracking your skull on the table. Lucian sat back on his heels. Isolde had wheeled herself closer, concern etched on her face. The vase, Lucian said flatly. Do you have any idea what that was worth? Lyra looked at the shattered pieces. Blue and white porcelain, each shard glittering in the gray light. More than I'll earn in a lifetime. $1.2 million. Lucian's voice was controlled. Too controlled. Ming Dynasty, authentic, irreplaceable. I'm sorry. You're sorry? He stood in one fluid motion, fury radiating from him like heat. That vase was 500 years old, a museum piece, a family heirloom. And you let it break? Lyra struggled to her feet, her back screaming. You were falling. You could have hit your head on the corner of that table, cracked your skull, died. So you chose me over the vase. Of course I did. Why, the question hung in the air between them. Lyra met his eyes, those impossibly blue, perfectly focused eyes. Because porcelain can be glued back together. Skulls can't. Isolde made a sound, half laugh, half sob. Lucian stared at Lyra for a long moment. Then he looked at the shattered vase, then back at her. Your father, he said quietly. The stroke. You said you weren't there when he fell. I was at work. He was alone in the bathroom. By the time I got home, Lyra's voice cracked. The damage was done. Permanent. I couldn't fix it. So you promised yourself you'd never let anyone fall on your watch again. It wasn't a question. Yes, Lyra whispered. Lucian reached out. His hand cupped her cheek, thumb brushing away a tear she didn't know had fallen. You're remarkable, he said. Then he pulled away, grabbed his cane, and walked from the room. His footsteps steady, his path true. Like a man who could see perfectly. Isolde wheeled closer. Help me to my room, child. I need to rest. Lyra helped her, moving carefully despite the pain in her back. Once Isolde was settled in bed, the older woman caught Lyra's hand. My son has been testing you, Isolde said, watching to see if you're like the others. Greedy, cruel, opportunistic. I know. Do you know why? Lyra shook her head. Isolde's grip tightened. Because 175 years ago, he loved a woman, trusted her with everything. his heart, his secrets, his true self. And she betrayed him, got his brother killed, destroyed his ability to trust humanity. What happened to her? He killed her. Isolde's eyes glittered with unshed tears, with his own hands, while she begged him to believe she'd been manipulated, lied to, used as a weapon against him. Lyra's blood ran cold. Was she telling the truth? We'll never know. Lucian had spent nearly 2 centuries punishing himself, pretending to be blind so he wouldn't have to see the good in people, wouldn't have to hope again. Isolde released Lyra's hand. You're the first person in all those years who's made him want to look. I don't understand. You will. Isolde closed her eyes. Now leave me. I need to think. Lyra left, her mind spinning. That night, she lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. Every muscle ached. Her back would be a constellation of bruises by morning. But she'd passed some invisible test. She knew it in her bones. The question was, what came next? The answer arrived 3 days later, September 26th, a Friday night. Lyra had helped Isolde to bed early. The older woman was having a difficult pain day and retreated to her room with a book. At 11:30, a sound jerked her awake, screaming. Lyra threw off her covers and ran. Down the hallway, toward Isolde's suite. The door was open. Inside, chaos. Isolde stood in the center of the room, not in her wheelchair. Standing, eyes wide and glowing red in the darkness. Her mouth open in a snarl that revealed teeth too sharp, too long. Sterling was backed against the wall, his arm bleeding from 3 parallel scratches. Mrs. Ashford, he said carefully. It's me. Sterling, you're safe. Safe? Isolde's voice had changed, deeper. Wrong. Nothing's safe. The hunger never stops, never sleeps, just waits. She lunged at Sterling. Lyra moved. She stepped between them, her arms spread wide. Isolde. Look at me. Isolde's head snapped toward her, those red eyes focused with predatory intensity. You don't want to hurt Sterling, Lyra said, her voice calm despite the terror clawing at her throat. He's your friend. He's been caring for you for 40 years. 40 years of pretending, Isolde hissed. 40 years of starving, dying. For what? For who? For your son, Lyra said. For Lucian. Lucian. Isolde's face twisted. My beautiful boy, my terrible boy. He did this to me. Made me this, and now I'm dying anyway. Human diseases in an inhuman body. Lyra took a step closer. You're confused. The pain medication. I'm not confused. Isolde's hand shot out, gripping Lyra's shoulder with impossible strength. I'm a vampire, a monster, and you're standing here like prey, little bird. Like a meal waiting to be consumed. Behind Isolde, the bedroom door opened. Lucian stood in the doorway, no glasses, eyes glowing the same red as his mother's. Mother, he said, his voice vibrating with power, release her. Make me. Don't make me do this. You won't hurt me. You love me too much. I love you more than my own existence, Lucian agreed, which is why I won't let you become the thing you've spent your life avoiding. Isolde's grip on Lyra tightened until her shoulder went numb. Lyra didn't scream, didn't struggle. She looked directly into Isolde's red eyes and whispered, breathe with me. Isolde blinked. What? In, which Lyra demonstrated. Slow breath in, out, slow breath out. With me, in, out, in, out. I don't need to breathe. Then do it for me, because I'm scared, and breathing helps. Something cracked in Isolde's expression. The red in her eyes flickered. You're scared, Isolde repeated, terrified. But you're not running. I promised I'd stay. Isolde's hand loosened, then dropped. The red in her eyes faded to pale blue. She crumpled. Lyra caught her, lowering them both to the floor. Isolde collapsed against her, sobbing. I almost killed you. But you didn't, Lyra said. You stopped. You heard me. You chose. Lucian crossed the room in 2 strides. He knelt beside them, gathering his mother in his arms like she weighed nothing. How did you do that? He asked Lyra. Do what? Calm her. No one's ever been able to stop a bloodlust episode, not without sedation or force. I just breathed with her. Lucian and Sterling exchanged a look. Sir, Sterling said quietly, that's impossible. Unless she has empathy bonding, 1 in 10 million humans carry the genetic marker. The ability to project calm directly into a vampire's nervous system. I know. Lucian stood, carrying Isolde to her bed. Sterling, call Dr. Vance. Tell him we need to run tests. What kind of tests? Lyra asked. Lucian laid Isolde down gently, brushing hair from her face. Then he turned to Lyra, his eyes back to their normal, impossible blue. Miss Winters, what I'm about to tell you will change everything. You can choose to leave tonight with generous compensation and no questions asked, or you can stay and learn the truth. He paused. But once you know, you can never unknow. Choose carefully. Lyra thought of Isolde's red eyes, Lucian's glowing gaze, the impossible strength, the word vampire hanging in the air like smoke. I choose truth, she said. Lucian smiled, sad and ancient and relieved. Then sit down, Lyra Winters. Because you've just done something that should be impossible, and I need to understand why. In the distance, thunder rolled across the sound. The storm was coming, and Lyra realized with a strange calm that she'd been walking toward this moment since the night she met a blind man who could see everything. The truth was waiting, and she was finally ready to face it. The truth came in pieces, like shattered porcelain being carefully reassembled, each fragment revealing more of a picture Lyra had never imagined existed. Lucian told her everything that night. September 26th, while rain lashed against the windows and Isolde slept under a sedation in the next room. Vampires were real. He was one. 600 years old. Born human in 1424, turned in 1574, and walking the earth ever since. Isolde was human. His adoptive mother from his mortal life turned vampire 50 years ago to save her from cancer the first time. But vampire physiology couldn't fight human disease forever. The cancer had returned, mutated, killing her from the inside despite her supernatural healing. And Lyra had done something impossible. She'd stopped a bloodlust frenzy with nothing but her voice and presence. Neither do I, not fully. Lucian stopped by the window, his reflection ghostly in the rain-streaked glass. But I know what it means. You're valuable, Lyra, dangerously so. There are vampires who would kill for access to someone with your gift, who would chain you in a basement and use you as a living sedative. That's why you tested me, Lyra said slowly. The money, the bracelet, the vase. You weren't just checking if I was honest. You were checking if I could be trusted with this. Yes. And the blindness? Lucian turned. Without his glasses, his eyes were devastating, blue and ancient and infinitely sad. I've been pretending to be blind for a decade, testing people, watching what they do when they think no one's looking, trying to find one good human in an ocean of greed and cruelty. Why? Because I lost faith. His voice cracked, just slightly. I won't make that mistake again. Lyra stood, her legs shook, but she forced them steady. What happens now? Now, when Lucian laughed bitterly. Now you run. Take the money I offered and disappear. Find a normal life somewhere far from vampires and ancient grudges and dying immortals. And your mother? I'll find someone else. Someone without the empathy bond? Someone who'll have to sedate her every time she has an episode? Lyra shook her head. That's not care. That's imprisonment. It's survival. It's cowardice. The word hung between them like a blade. Lucian's jaw tightened. You have no idea what you're saying. Don't I? Lyra moved closer, close enough to see the tension in his shoulders, the ancient weariness in his eyes. You're 600 years old, powerful, immortal, and you're hiding behind dark glasses, pretending to be helpless because you're afraid of being hurt again. I'm not afraid. Liar. Lucian's hand shot out, not threatening, just fast enough to prove his point. He caught her wrist, his grip iron strong but careful not to bruise. I could kill you before you finish screaming, he said softly. I could drain you dry and dispose of the body where no one would ever find it. That's what I am, Lyra. A predator. A monster. You should be terrified. Lyra looked at his hand on her wrist, then at his face. But you won't, she said, because despite everything, you're still trying to protect me. Even from yourself. Lucian released her like she'd burned him. You're staying, he said. Not a question. I'm staying. Why? Because Isolde needs me, because I need this. And because, she paused, because you're the first person in 2 years who's looked at me and seen someone worth more than servitude. Even though I'm a monster? Everyone's a monster to someone, Lyra said. The question is what you do with the teeth. Lucian stared at her for a long moment. Then impossibly, he smiled. You're dangerous, Lyra Winters. Good, she said. So are you. October 1st arrived with autumn in full fury. The trees around the estate burned gold and crimson. The sound turned slate gray, churning with whitecaps. And inside the Ashford house, everything changed. Lucian stopped pretending. Not publicly. The world still saw him as blind, still watched him navigate with a cane and dark glasses. But inside the estate, he moved freely. No performance, no masks. Lyra watched him come alive. He read books without braille, cooked breakfast with precision that required sight, worked at his computer, his eyes scanning documents faster than humanly possible. "Why did you choose blindness?" Lyra asked one morning, watching him make coffee with the ease of centuries of practice. "Because blind people are underestimated," Lucian said. "People speak freely around them, plot, reveal themselves. They forget that ears work perfectly fine without eyes. And it let you test them." "Yes." He poured coffee into 2 mugs, handed her one. "I've gone through 47 employees in 10 years. Housekeepers, assistants, companions for mother. Every single one tried to steal, manipulate, or exploit within 3 weeks." 47? You're number 48. Lucian leaned against the counter. "And the first to pass every test. What if I'd failed? I would have fired you with excellent references and moved on." "That's all? What else would I do?" Lyra sipped her coffee. "The way you talk about them, the others. There's contempt there. Anger, like you wanted them to fail." Lucian's expression darkened. "I wanted them to prove me wrong, to show me that humanity still had value beyond blood and screams. They didn't. Until me. Until you." He set down his mug. "Which is why you need to understand something, Lyra. What you did for my mother, stopping her frenzy, that's going to attract attention. The vampire world is small, gossipy. Word will spread that Lucian Ashford has found an empath, and people will come looking." "What kind of people?" "The worst kind." That afternoon, Sterling pulled Lyra aside. "Mr. Ashford has made a decision," he said, his British accent crisp with formality. "Your salary is being increased to $250,000 per year." Lyra's coffee mug slipped from her fingers. Sterling caught it before it hit the floor. "I'm sorry, what?" $250,000, retroactive to your hire date. He's also establishing a secure account in your name." Sterling handed her a folder. "The details are here." Lyra opened it with trembling hands. Bank statements, account numbers, a balance that made her vision blur. "This is too much." "Mr. Ashford disagrees. He believes you're worth considerably more, but this is what he can justify without raising questions." Sterling's expression softened. "Miss Winters, you have a gift that's priceless to this household. You're being compensated accordingly." "But I just talked to her, breathe with her." "You give her peace," Sterling said quietly. "In 600 years, I've never seen anyone do that. Not for vampires in frenzy. You're a miracle, Miss Winters. Accept it." Lyra closed the folder. Her hand still shook. $250,000. Enough to leave the Winters estate forever. Enough to start over. Enough to be free. "There's one condition," Sterling added. "Of course there is. You don't tell your stepfamily, the salary, the account, any of this. As far as they're concerned, you're still just a companion earning modest wages." "Which don't, because Mr. Ashford doesn't trust them, and neither should you." That evening, Lyra's phone rang. Vivian's name flashed on the screen. Lyra's stomach nodded, but she answered. "You need to come home," Vivian said without preamble. "Now." "I'm working." "It's Friday evening. Surely that blind man doesn't need you every second." Lyra bit back a sharp response. "What do you want?" "We need to discuss your employment situation. This arrangement is embarrassing the family." "I'm caring for a dying woman." "How is that embarrassing?" "People are talking, Lyra. They see you working for the Ashfords and they ask questions. Why would Lucian Ashford choose you over more qualified candidates? What did you do to manipulate him?" Heat flooded Lyra's face. "I didn't manipulate anyone." "Then come home and explain yourself, unless you're too ashamed." The line went dead. Lyra stared at her phone, rage and hurt warring in her chest. "You don't have to go," Lucian said from the doorway. Lyra jumped. She hadn't heard him approach. Vampire stealth. "How long have you been standing there?" "Long enough." He moved into her room, a liberty he'd started taking since the truth came out. "Your stepmother is trying to control you." "I know. So don't go." "I have to face her eventually." "Why?" Good question. Lyra thought of her father, the last thing he'd said before the stroke stole his words. "Be kind, Lyra Bell, even when they're cruel, especially then." "Because she's still family," Lyra said, "and I need to prove I'm not running away." Lucian studied her face. "You're stronger than you know. Or stupider. Perhaps both." He smiled. "But if you go, Sterling drives you, and you're back by 10. Not negotiable. You're not my keeper. No, Lucian agreed, but I'm your employer, and I'm protective of my investments. The words should have stung. Instead, they felt like safety. The Winters estate looked exactly as Lyra remembered. Cold, imposing, empty despite its size. Sterling parked the Maybach in the circular drive. I'll wait here, Miss Winters. Call if you need extraction. Extraction? Rescue, escape. Dramatic fleeing. Sterling's expression remained serious, but his eyes twinkled. I've orchestrated several in my time. Lyra laughed despite her nerves. I'll keep that in mind. Vivian answered the door herself. She wore white silk, her hair perfectly coiffed, her makeup flawless. She looked like money and breeding and cold calculation. You're late. Traffic. Lying doesn't suit you, Lyra. Vivian stepped aside. Come in, we're in the sitting room. We. Lyra's stomach sank. Serafina sprawled on the velvet sofa, her engagement ring catching the lamplight. She looked up when Lyra entered, her smile uncertain. Hi, Lyra, she said quietly. Serafina, Vivian said. Manners. Lyra remained standing. You said we needed to talk. Sit. I'm fine standing. Vivian's eyes narrowed. Suit yourself. She settled into her chair like a queen on a throne. I've been thinking about your situation. This job with the Ashfords, it's not appropriate. Why not? Because you're representing this family, and the optics of Edmund Winter's daughter working as a servant. I'm not a servant. I'm a palliative care specialist. You're a glorified nurse, Vivian said coldly. How much is he paying you, anyway? Minimum wage? I bet he thinks he's being charitable. Lyra thought of the bank account, the $250,000, the freedom it represented. Enough, she said carefully. How much is enough? Enough to not be dependent on you anymore. Silence crashed through the room. Vivian stood. Excuse me? You heard me. Lyra lifted her chin. The gesture felt foreign and powerful. I don't need your permission. I don't need your approval. I'm 26 years old and I'm making my own choices. In this house, I don't live in this house anymore. You'll always live here, Vivian said, her voice dropping to something dangerous. This is your home, your responsibility. You owe us. I owe you nothing. Your father, my father loved me, Lyra said, her voice shaking. He wanted me to be happy. You want me to be useful. There's a difference. Vivian moved to a side table, opened a drawer, pulled out something that made Lyra's heart stop. A silver locket, small, delicate, engraved with flowers. Do you recognize this? Vivian asked, her voice cold. Lyra couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. I found it in your father's belongings after he died. Beautiful piece, antique, worth about $50,000 to the right collector. Vivian turned it in the light. I sold it, used the money to update the master bathroom. The marble you complimented last year? That's your inheritance. The words hit like physical blows. That locket belonged to my mother. Your mother died when you were 6 months old. She had no use for jewelry. Vivian smiled. But I did, and Edmund left everything to me, remember? His will was very clear. He left me that locket in a letter. What letter? The one in his desk, the one that said, to Lyra on her 27th birthday. Vivian's smile never wavered. I have no idea what you're talking about. Liar. The word screamed in Lyra's mind, but she forced herself to stay calm. Where's the locket now? Long gone, sold to an estate dealer in Portland. Why, planning to buy it back with your servant wages? Lyra turned toward the door. Wait, Serafina said, standing. Her voice was small. Lyra, I didn't know about the locket. I swear, Mother never told me. Vivian shot her daughter a warning look. It doesn't matter, Lyra said quietly. I'm choosing to leave. There's a difference between running away and walking out with dignity. She left. Down the hallway, through the front door. Sterling saw her face and had the Maybach's door open before she reached the car. Home, Miss Winters? Yes, Lyra whispered. Please. As they pulled away, Lyra looked back at the Winters estate, the house where she'd grown up, the house that had never felt like home. She didn't cry. She'd wasted enough tears on people who didn't deserve them. Lucian was waiting in the library when she returned. How bad? He asked. They sold my mother's locket, the one my father left me in his will. Lyra's voice came out flat, mechanical. Used the money for bathroom renovations. Lucian's expression darkened. That's theft. The will left everything to Vivian, technically legal. Morally bankrupt. Yes, Lyra sank into a chair. She has no idea what it meant to me. That locket was the only thing I had of my mother, the only piece of her left. Lucian was quiet for a long moment. Then, what if I told you I could get it back? Lyra looked up. How? I have resources, connections. Give me 3 days. It's sold 2 years ago. It could be anywhere. Then I'll find anywhere. Lucian knelt in front of her chair, bringing himself to eye level. Lyra, you gave my mother peace. You gave me hope. Let me give you this. Why buying? Because you're worth it, and someone needs to show you that. 3 days later, Sterling presented her with a velvet box. Inside, nestled in silk, was her mother's locket. Lyra's hands shook as she lifted it. The silver was cool against her palm, the engraving just as she remembered. Inside, a tiny photograph, a woman with Lyra's eyes and smile. How much did you pay? Lyra whispered. Irrelevant, Lucian said. Lucian, 50,000 to the dealer, another 25 to expedite shipping, and a significant donation to ensure discretion. He smiled slightly. Consider it part of your compensation package. Lyra couldn't speak, could barely breathe. She threw her arms around him. Lucian stiffened. Then slowly, carefully, his arms came around her. He was cold, solid, ancient, and in that moment, the safest thing Lyra had ever held onto. Thank you, she whispered. You're welcome. They stayed like that for longer than necessary, and neither of them pulled away. October 7th brought rain and news. Sterling received a phone call during breakfast. His expression shifted from neutral to concerned to carefully blank. He excused himself, returned 5 minutes later. Sir, the council has called a meeting tonight. Mandatory attendance. Lucian set down his coffee. What's the agenda? You, sir, and Miss Winters. Lyra's stomach dropped. Me? Word has spread, Sterling said carefully, about the empath. Council wants verification. They can want all they like, Lucian said coldly. Lyra's not some curiosity to be examined. Nevertheless, sir, council law is clear. All supernatural assets must be registered and assessed for threat level. Assets? Lyra's voice rose. I'm a person. Not to them, Lucian said grimly. He stood, pacing. This is exactly what I was afraid of. The moment the council knows about you, you become valuable, and valuable things get fought over. What happens at this meeting? They'll test you, try to trigger the empathy bond with controlled vampires. Measure your range, your limits, determine if you're an asset or a threat. And if they decide I'm a threat? Silence. Lucian, Lyra pressed, what happens? They eliminate threats, he said quietly. The word hung in the air like smoke. Can they do that? Kill a human? They can do whatever they want. They're the law in the vampire world. Lucian turned to her. But they won't touch you. I won't let them. How can you stop them? I'm the Pacific Coven's king. That gives me some protection, some power. His jaw tightened. Not enough, but some. There's another option, Sterling said. No. Sir, if you claimed her, I said no. Lyra looked between them. Claimed me? What does that mean? Sterling glanced at Lucian. When he didn't answer, Sterling explained. In vampire culture, a king can claim humans under his protection. It grants them immunity from council judgment, but it also marks them as personal property, bound to you legally and socially. Like a slave, Lyra said. Like a mistress, Sterling corrected, or a blood servant. The implication is intimate. Heat crept up Lyra's neck. Oh, exactly. Lucian's voice was sharp. I won't do that to you. Won't reduce you to an ornament in vampire politics. You deserve better. But it would keep me safe. At what cost? Lyra met his eyes, saw the conflict there, the ancient honor warring with practical necessity. What if I consented, she asked. You don't understand what you'd be consenting to. Then explain it to me. Lucian was quiet for a long moment. Then, if I claim you, the vampire world sees you as mine. My property, my possession. They can't touch you without challenging me directly. But Lyra, it means you wear my mark. Drink my blood to seal the bond. Stand at my side in council and let them believe I own you. Do you own me? No? Then it's theater, performance. Lyra lifted her chin. I'm good at being invisible, at playing roles. If this protects me, I'll do it. Lyra, unless you have a better plan. Lucian looked at Sterling. Sterling shook his head. Fine, Lucian bit out. But we do this my way, with contracts, with protections, with an exit clause if you change your mind. Agreed. And Lyra, Lucian stepped closer. This changes things between us. We'll have to be convincing, publicly affectionate. They'll be watching for cracks in the performance. I understand it, Pin. Do you? His hand came up, cupping her face with surprising gentleness. Because I'm 600 years old and I still don't understand why you're willing to do this. Because you bought back my mother's locket, Lyra said. Because you see me. Because, she paused. Because I trust you more than I trust the council. Lucian's thumb brushed her cheek. You shouldn't. Too late, he smiled, sad and beautiful and resigned. Sterling, prepare the claiming ritual. We do this tonight, before the council meeting. Yes, sir. As Sterling left, Lucian pulled away from Lyra, but not before she saw something flicker in his eyes. Something that looked dangerously like hope. The claiming ritual was simple and terrifying. They stood in the library. Lucian, Lyra, Sterling as witness, candles burned. Not for ambiance, Sterling explained. For tradition. Fire purifies the bond. Hold out your wrist, Lucian said. Lyra did. Her hand trembled only slightly. Lucian's eyes flashed red, just for a moment, then his fangs descended, sharp, white, impossible. Lyra's breath caught. This will hurt, Lucian warned. I'm sorry. He bit. Pain lanced up Lyra's arm, sharp and burning and invasive. She gasped but didn't pull away. Lucian drank. 3 swallows. No more. When he pulled back, blood stained his lips. His eyes glowed crimson in the candlelight. Now you drink from me, he said. He bit his own wrist. Dark blood welled up, almost black in the flickering light. I have to? To complete the bond. Lyra took his wrist. The skin was cold beneath her fingers. She closed her eyes and drank. The blood tasted like copper and darkness in centuries of memory. It burned down her throat, igniting something deep in her chest. Power flooded her. Ancient, vast, terrifying. Lucian pulled away. Enough. Lyra staggered. Lucian caught her, holding her steady while the world spun. What was that? My essence. A piece of my power flowing into you. You'll feel stronger, faster. Your senses will sharpen. The bond will let us sense each other over distance. His hand tightened on her arm. And every vampire we encounter will smell me on you. Know you're mine. Yours, Lyra repeated. The word felt heavy, weighted with implications. In name only, Lucian said firmly. The bond can be broken. When this is over, when you're safe, I'll release you. I promise. But something in his tone suggested he wasn't sure he'd be able to. The council met in a mansion in the Highlands. Old money, old power, and old blood. Sterling drove them. Lyra wore a dress Lucian had provided, black silk that hugged her body and fell to her ankles. Simple but elegant, and around her neck, her mother's locket, a reminder of who she was beneath the performance. Lucian wore a suit that probably cost more than most cars. He'd abandoned his dark glasses for the night. Let his eyes show. Blue and ancient and powerful. No more pretending. Remember, he murmured as they walked up the marble steps. You're mine. Act like it. Lyra slipped her hand into his. His fingers closed around hers, cold and sure. The doors opened. 12 vampires waited inside. They sat around a massive table, each one radiating power that made Lyra's new senses scream danger. Some looked young, some looked middle-aged, and all of them carried the weight of centuries in their eyes. And at the head of the table sat a man who made everyone else look like shadows. Alaric Voss. He was beautiful in the way that predators are beautiful. Dark hair, sharp features, eyes that shifted from brown to red to black depending on the light. He wore modern clothes but moved like something from another era. Dangerous, controlled, patient. Lucian, Alaric said, his voice smooth as honey. It's been too long. Not long enough, Lucian replied. Alaric's gaze shifted to Lyra. He studied her like she was a puzzle he intended to solve. And this must be the empath, the girl who calms bloodlust with a whisper. He smiled. Fascinating. I'd heard the rumors but thought them exaggerated. They're not, Lucian said coldly, and she's under my protection. Claimed, bound, mine. Murmurs rippled around the table. Alaric's smile widened. Claimed? How territorial of you. Lucian's hand tightened on Lyra's. This isn't your concern. Everything in this territory is my concern. Alaric stood. You claim this girl. Fine. But the council has a right to verify her abilities, to ensure she's not a threat. She's not. Prove it. Before Lucian could respond, Alaric gestured. 2 vampires emerged from the shadows. They grabbed Lucian and pulled him away from Lyra. What are you doing? Lucian snarled. Testing her, Alaric said. If she can truly calm bloodlust, let's see it work on someone who isn't your mother. He nodded. One of the vampires restraining Lucian drove a silver blade into his side. Lucian roared, his eyes blazed red. The scent of his blood filled the room, rich, ancient, intoxicating. The second vampire lunged at Lyra, red eyes, fangs bared, hunger unleashed. Lyra didn't think, just moved on instinct. She grabbed the vampire's face with both hands, forced him to meet her eyes. "Look at me," she commanded. "Breathe with me." The vampire snarled, fought her grip. Lyra didn't let go. "In," she whispered, "out. With me. In, out." Something shifted. The red in the vampire's eyes flickered. "In, out. You're safe. You're in control. In, out." The vampire stopped struggling. The red faded. His fangs retracted. He collapsed to his knees, gasping. Silence filled the room. Alaric stared at Lyra with something between fascination and hunger. "Remarkable," he breathed. The vampires released Lucian. He pulled the silver blade from his side, his face twisted with pain and fury. "Are you satisfied?" he demanded. "Not quite." Alaric moved closer to Lyra. Too close. "Tell me, girl, how does it work? This gift of yours?" "I don't know." "Liar." "I'm not lying." Lyra held his gaze. "I just breathe with them. Connect. Remind them they're more than hunger." Alaric's hand shot out, grabbed her wrist, the one Lucian had bitten. "She carries your mark," he said to Lucian. "Your blood in her veins. That's interesting." "Release her." "Or what?" Alaric's grip tightened. "You'll fight me? Here? In front of the council? That would be unwise, old friend." Lucian took a step forward. Rage radiated from him like heat. But before he could move, Alaric released Lyra. "I'm satisfied," he announced to the room. "The empath is real, powerful, and claimed by Lucian Ashford." His smile turned sharp. "Which means she's protected by council law, for now." "For now?" Lyra echoed. "Laws change, girl, especially when something valuable appears." Alaric returned to his seat. "You're free to go, both of you, but remember, the council is watching. And if we determine you're a threat, you'll try," Lucian said coldly, "and fail." They left. Lyra's legs shook, but she forced them steady. In the car, Lucian pulled her close. "Are you hurt?" "No," shaken, but no. "I'm sorry, I should have protected you better." "You couldn't have known." "I should have known Alaric would pull something." Lucian's jaw was tight. "He's been trying to undermine me for 200 years. Now he knows about you, and he'll use that however he can." "What does he want?" "Power, territory, to prove he's stronger than me." Lucian looked out the window. Alaric was the one who manipulated Isabella, turned her into a vampire against her will, then sent her to seduce me and destroy my family. I've never forgiven him. And now he's interested in me. "Yes." Lyra touched the mark on her wrist. It throbbed with phantom pain. "What happens next?" "We prepare," Lucian said grimly, "because Alaric doesn't just watch. He acts, and whatever he's planning, it will be designed to hurt me through you." October 14th arrived too quickly. Lyra woke to find an invitation slipped under her door. Elegant cardstock, embossed letters, the Seattle Autumn Charity Gala, Fairmont Olympic Hotel. The second one of the season. Attendance, mandatory for all Ashford household members. "I don't understand," Lyra said at breakfast. "Why mandatory?" "Because the board requires it," Lucian said, his voice tight. "I'm CEO of Ashford Enterprises. Public appearances are part of the job. And now that you're my claimed companion, you have to appear too." "Will Alaric be there?" "Probably." Sterling set down a coffee cup. "The event is neutral ground, human and vampire society mixing. It's tradition." "Wonderful," Lyra muttered. "There's more," Lucian added. "Your stepfamily will be there. Vivian and Serafina received invitations." Lyra's stomach sank. "Of course they did. If you want to skip it." "No." Lyra lifted her chin. "I'm not hiding, not from Alaric, not from Vivian. I'm done being invisible." Lucian smiled. "There's my fierce girl." The endearment slipped out. Neither of them acknowledged it, but Lyra felt warmth bloom in her chest anyway. October 18th, the gala. Lyra wore midnight blue silk. Sterling had found it, a gown that made her look elegant and powerful, and nothing like the girl who'd served drinks at the last charity event. Her mother's locket rested against her throat, and on her wrist, hidden by a delicate bracelet, the claiming mark. Lucian wore black, simple, devastating. His eyes uncovered, blazing blue in the dim light. They arrived fashionably late, heads turned, whispers followed. "Is that Lucian Ashford?" He's not wearing glasses. And who's the girl? I heard he claimed her, a human. Scandalous. Lucian's hand rested on Lyra's lower back. Possessive. Protective. Ignore them, he murmured. I'm trying. They made it 10 feet before Vivian materialized. She wore crimson silk. Serafina hovered beside her in gold, looking uncomfortable. Lyra, Vivian's smile was sharp as knives. You look different. Thank you. It wasn't a compliment. Vivian's gaze traveled over the dress, the locket, the way Lucian's hand rested on Lyra's back. I see you've traded one form of servitude for another. Excuse me? Mr. Ashford. Vivian turned her attention to Lucian, her voice dripping honey. I'm Lyra's stepmother. We haven't been properly introduced. I know who you are, Lucian said coldly. Then you know I raised Lyra, gave her a home after her father died, provided for her. Vivian's smile never wavered. I hope she's been satisfactory. The implication was clear. Lucian's expression went glacial. Miss Winters is exceptional, far beyond anything you could comprehend. Enjoy your evening, Lucian said, already turning away. We have better company to keep. He guided Lyra through the crowd, his hand steady on her back. You didn't have to do that, Lyra said. Yes, I did. They insulted you. I don't tolerate that. You're very protective. You're mine to protect. The word sent a shiver down Lyra's spine that had nothing to do with fear. They found a quiet corner. Champagne appeared in their hands. Sterling's doing, discreet as always. For a moment, it almost felt normal. Then Serafina appeared, alone, without Vivian. Can we talk? She asked Lyra. Please? Lucian's hand tightened. No. Lucian, Lyra said softly, it's okay. Give us a minute. I don't trust her. I know, but I need to do this. Lucian studied her face, then nodded, stepping back but not far, close enough to intervene if needed. Serafina led Lyra to the balcony. The night air was cold, crisp with approaching winter. I'm sorry, Serafina said. Lyra blinked. What? For how Mother's been treating you. For everything. Serafina twisted her engagement ring. I didn't know about the locket. Not until yesterday. I confronted her and she admitted she sold it. Her voice cracked. Lyra, I didn't know about a lot of things. And I should have asked. Should have protected you. I'm so sorry. Serafina, I saw how he looked at you. Serafina's eyes glistened. Lucian Ashford, the most powerful man in Seattle. And he looks at you like you're precious, like you matter. No one's ever looked at me like that, not even Brandon. He proposed because I'm pretty and connected, not because he loves me. Lyra didn't know what to say. I've been jealous, Serafina whispered. So jealous it hurt. But that doesn't excuse what I didn't do, what I didn't see. You deserve better from me, from all of us. She paused. I know you can't forgive me. I needed you to know I'm sorry. She turned to leave. Serafina, Lyra called. Serafina paused. Thank you for apologizing. That took courage. Serafina smiled sadly. Not as much courage as you have. She disappeared back into the gala. Lyra stood alone on the balcony, her mind spinning. That's when someone grabbed her. A hand clamped over her mouth, an arm wrapped around her waist, iron strong. She tried to scream, but only managed a muffled sound. A voice whispered in her ear. Male. Unfamiliar. Cold. Mr. Voss sends his regards. Cloth pressed against her nose. Sweet. Chemical. Chloroform. The world tilted. Darkened. Lyra's last thought before unconsciousness took her was Lucian's name. Then nothing. She woke in darkness. Her head pounded. Her mouth tasted like copper and chemicals. She tried to move and found her wrists bound with silver chains. Silver burned. She was in a room. Stone walls. No windows. A single door. Heavy and wooden and locked. Cathedral architecture. Old. Abandoned. You're awake. Lyra's head snapped toward the voice. Alaric Voss stepped from the shadows. He looked different without the council around him. Wilder. More dangerous. Where am I? Somewhere safe, Alaric said, from Lucian's overprotective tendencies. He'll find me. Eventually. But by then you and I will have had a very interesting conversation. Alaric crouched in front of her. Do you know what you are, Lyra Winters? An empath. More than that. Alaric's hand shot out, gripping her chin. Your father, Edmund Winters. What did he tell you about himself? He was a businessman. He died of a stroke. Alaric laughed. A stroke, that's what they told you? He released her, pacing. Edmund Winters was vampire royalty, my cousin. Exiled from the Eastern Coven for falling in love with a human. Your mother. Lyra's blood froze. You're lying. Am I? Alaric pulls something from his pocket, a photograph. Old. Faded. He showed it to her. A man who looked exactly like her father, but the photo was dated 1920. Edmund was turned in 1850. He lived for 170 years before defecting. Before meeting Alara, your mother. She was human, beautiful, kind. Alaric's voice softened. He loved her desperately, enough to give up immortality. That's impossible. Is it? Or have you been lied to your entire life? Alaric knelt again. Edmund gave up his vampire nature to have a child with Alara. Used ancient magic to become human again. It worked. For a while, but vampire essence doesn't just disappear. It lingers. In blood. In genetics. He grabbed Lyra's wrist, the one with Lucian's mark. In you. I'm not a vampire. No, you're something rarer, a half-blood, part human, part vampire. Dormant until awakened. Alaric's eyes gleamed. And your empathy gift, that's not random. That's royal bloodline. The ability to command loyalty, to calm frenzy, to control. Lyra's mind raced. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to understand what you're worth. Not to Lucian, not to the council. To me. Alaric stood. With your gift, I could control the Eastern Covens. Unite the vampire world under one rule. Mine. I'll never help you. You won't have a choice. Alaric moved to the store. Your stepmother, Vivian? She's been working with me for 2 years, feeding me information, stealing your father's letters. She knew what you were, and she sold you to me for $2 million. The revelation hit like a physical blow. Vivian killed my father, poisoned him with vampire bane, slow, painful, made it look like a stroke. Alaric's smile was cruel. She's been stealing your inheritance. The money Edmund left for you, the locket, the truth. All of it gone. Rage flooded Lyra's veins, hot and consuming. Where is she? Safe for now. Once I'm done with you, I'll deal with her. But first, Alaric opened the door. We're going to awaken your vampire half, and you're going to help me whether you want to or not. He left. The door slammed. Lyra was alone in the dark. Her father's voice echoed in memory. Be kind, Lyra Bell, even when they're cruel. But how could she be kind when everything was a lie? Vampire royalty. Half-blood, her father supernatural, her mother human, and Vivian. Vivian had murdered her father. Lyra pulled against the silver chains. They burned, but she didn't care. She had to escape, had to warn Lucian, had to... The claiming mark on her wrist flared hot. Not pain, connection. She felt Lucian, miles away but coming closer. Rage and fear and determination pouring through the bond. I'm here, Lyra whispered to the darkness. I'm still here. And somewhere in the night, she knew he heard her. The rescue was coming. She just had to survive until he arrived. Time moved differently in the dark. Lyra counted her heartbeats, measured the burn of silver against her wrists, traced the stone walls with her eyes, looking for weakness, for escape, for anything. The cathedral was old, abandoned. She could smell decay and rain and something else, something ancient and wrong that made her new senses scream danger. Vampire territory. A place where humans weren't meant to survive. But Lyra wasn't entirely human anymore. She could feel it now. The blood Lucian had given her during the claiming ritual, flowing through her veins like liquid power, strengthening her, sharpening her senses, creating a connection that pulsed with each heartbeat. He was coming. She knew it the way she knew her own name, felt his rage like thunder in her bones, his fear, his absolute determination to find her. The claiming mark burned. Not pain, communication. Hold on, it seemed to say. I'm coming. Hold on. The door opened. 2 vampires entered, young ones, maybe a century old. They moved with the casual arrogance of predators who'd never been prey. Mr. Voss wants to see you, the taller one said. They unchained her from the wall but kept her wristbound, dragged her down a corridor lit by flickering bulbs. The cathedral had been abandoned for decades, but someone had restored electricity. Temporary, crude, just enough. They brought her to what had once been the main chapel. Alaric stood before the ruined altar. Candles burned despite the electricity, hundreds of them, creating shadows that danced like demons across broken stained glass. Lyra, Alaric said, turning, thank you for joining me. I didn't have a choice. No, you didn't. He gestured, and the vampires forced her to her knees. Do you know what this place is? A cathedral. More than that. This is where your father married your mother. 30 years ago, before the Eastern Coven hunted them, before they fled to Seattle, before Edmund gave up everything to be human. Alaric's voice carried a strange reverence. He loved her desperately, stupidly, and it got them both killed. Lyra's throat tightened. My mother died when I was 6 months old. Your mother was murdered by hunters, hired by the Eastern Coven to punish Edmund's defection. Alaric crouched in front of her. He watched her die, then he ran, took you and disappeared, changed his name, his life, everything, to protect you. And Vivian? Found him 5 years later. He was lonely, broken. She saw opportunity, married him, waited for him to die so she could take everything. She poisoned him. Yes, slowly, with vampire bane disguised as heart medication. It took 2 years to kill him, long enough that no one suspected. Alaric's smile was cold. Your stepmother is many things, Lyra. But she's patient. I'll give her that. Rage burned through Lyra's veins, hot and consuming and dangerous. Where is she? Safe for now. Once you've served your purpose, I'll decide what to do with her. Alaric stood. But first, we need to awaken what's sleeping inside you. I told you, I won't help you. You don't have to help. You just have to bleed. He nodded. One of the vampires grabbed Lyra's arm, yanked it toward Alaric. Alaric produced a knife, silver blade, ancient runes carved into the metal. Your father's blood gave you the empathy gift, but it's dormant, locked behind human genetics. This blade will cut through that lock, trigger the transformation, make you what you were always meant to be. A half-blood vampire, a queen. Alaric pressed the blade to her forearm. This will hurt, probably more than anything you've ever felt. But when it's over, you'll be magnificent. He cut. The pain was immediate and catastrophic, not just physical. The blade didn't just slice skin, it cut through something deeper, something fundamental, like Alaric was carving away the parts of her that were human and exposing what lay beneath. Lyra screamed. Her blood hit the stone floor. Not red, darker, almost black. It hissed where it landed, burning through centuries of dust. Beautiful, Alaric breathed. Lyra's vision blurred, her body convulsed. She felt something inside her breaking open, unfurling, ancient and powerful and hungry. Her senses exploded. She could hear heartbeats miles away, smell individual raindrops hitting the cathedral roof, see colors she'd never known existed, feel the earth turning beneath her knees. And the hunger. Oh God, the hunger. It roared through her like wildfire, demanding, consuming, making her aware of every pulse, every breath, every living thing in a 10-mile radius. That's it, Alaric said. Let it wake up. Let it consume you. But through the pain and hunger and transformation, Lyra heard something else. A voice. Calm, steady, familiar. Breathe with me. Her father's voice. Not memory, something deeper. Like he'd left a piece of himself in her blood, waiting for this moment. In, out. You're more than hunger, Lyra Bell. You're more than power. You're kind. You're good. You're mine. Lyra grabbed onto that voice like a lifeline. Breathed in, out. The hunger didn't disappear, but it settled, became manageable. A whisper instead of a scream. She opened her eyes. Alaric stared at her with something between awe and fear. Impossible, he whispered. You should be feral. Mindless. It takes decades to control the first transformation. My father taught me control, Lyra said. Her voice sounded different, stronger. Even dead, he's still protecting me. Fascinating. Alaric circled her. But control won't save you from what comes next. You see, Lyra, your empathy gift works both ways. You can calm vampires, but you can also command them, force them to obey. And I'm going to teach you how. Never. We'll see. Alaric gestured. The two vampires grabbed her again, dragging her to her feet. Bring in the test subject. A door opened. They dragged in another vampire. Female. Young-looking but ancient in the eyes. She was chained in silver, burns covering her wrists and ankles. This is Celeste, Alaric said. She served me for 300 years. Then she tried to betray me. Sell my secrets to the council. So now she's going to help me train you. He grabbed a stake from the altar, wooden, sharp, deadly. Use your gift, Lyra. Command her to take this stake and drive it through her own heart. Lyra's stomach turned. No. No? Alaric pressed the stake into Lyra's bound hands. Then I'll do it myself, slowly, while you watch. He moved towards Celeste. The vampire's eyes widened. Please, please, master, I'm sorry. I'll do anything. Please don't. Beg the half-blood, Alaric said. Maybe she'll show you mercy. Celeste's gaze locked on Lyra. Please, I have a daughter, a human daughter. She doesn't know what I am. She thinks I'm just her mother. Please don't let him kill me. Lyra looked at the stake in her hands, at Celeste's terrified face, at Alaric's cruel smile, and she made a choice. She closed her eyes, reached for that new power thrumming in her veins, the empathy gift amplified by vampire blood. But instead of commanding Celeste to die, she did something else. She commanded the two vampires holding her to let go. The compulsion hit them like a physical blow. Their hands released. They stumbled back, confused. Lyra lunged at Alaric. The stake drove into his shoulder. Not his heart. She wasn't trying to kill him. Just disable. Alaric roared, backhanding her across the face. She flew backward, hitting stone with brutal force. But she'd bought time, and time was all she needed. Because at that moment, the cathedral doors exploded inward. Lucian stood in the wreckage. His eyes blazed red. His fangs fully descended. He looked like death incarnate, beautiful and terrible and absolutely merciless. Sterling flanked him on one side. Two other vampires she didn't recognize on the other. Get away from her, Lucian said. His voice vibrated with barely controlled fury. Alaric laughed, pulling the stake from his shoulder. Lucian, right on time. I was wondering when you'd arrive. I said, get away from her. Or what, you'll fight me, here, alone? Alaric's smile widened. You're outnumbered, outmatched. This isn't your territory. I don't need territory to destroy you. Bold words, Alaric gestured. More vampires emerged from the shadows. 10, 15, 20, all loyal to him, all ready to fight. But can you back them up? Lucian looked at Lyra. Their eyes met across the ruined chapel. Are you hurt? The question came through the bond, clear as speech. I'm okay, just get me out of here. Hold on. He moved, vampire speed, impossible to track with human eyes. He became a blur of violence, tearing through Alaric's forces like they were paper. Sterling followed, efficient, brutal, centuries of combat experience in every move. The cathedral erupted into chaos, bodies flying, blood spraying, screams echoing off stone. Lyra struggled to her feet. Her wrists still burned from silver, but she ignored the pain. She had to help, had to do something. She looked at Celeste, still chained, still terrified. Can you fight? Lyra asked. If you free me. Lyra grabbed the silver chains. They burned her palms, but she pulled, hard. The half-blood strength kicked in. The chain snapped. Celeste gasped. Thank you. Thank me later. Right now, help them. Celeste nodded and dove into the fight. Lyra turned to find Alaric watching her. He'd stayed back, letting his forces fight while he observed. Impressive, Monty said. You're adapting faster than I expected, but it won't save you. Maybe not, but I'm not going down without a fight. That's what I wanted to hear. Alaric moved toward her. Not fast, just relentless. Let's see what you can really do, little half-blood. He lunged. Lyra tried to dodge, but he was faster. His hand closed around her throat, lifting her off the ground. Your empathy gift won't work on me, Alaric said. I've spent centuries building mental shields. You can't command what you can't touch. Lyra clawed at his hand, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Across the chapel, Lucian saw. His roar shook the building. He abandoned his fight, launched himself at Alaric. The two ancient vampires collided with the force of a car crash. They went down in a tangle of limbs and fury. Lyra hit the ground, gasping for air. She watched them fight. Really fight. Not the controlled sparring of the council chamber. This was primal, vicious, centuries of hatred unleashed. They were evenly matched. Alaric stronger, Lucian faster, both of them bleeding, both of them relentless. I should have killed you 2 centuries ago, Alaric snarled, driving Lucian into the altar. You tried, Lucian shot back. You failed then. You'll fail now. Will I? Alaric's hand closed around Lucian's throat. I took everything from you once, your brother, your faith in humanity. What makes you think I can't do it again? Because this time, Lucian said, his voice dropping to something deadly, I'm not fighting for revenge, I'm fighting for her. He drove his fist through Alaric's ribcage. Alaric screamed, but before Lucian could finish it, 3 vampires grabbed him, pulled him off, held him down. Alaric stood, bleeding, furious. Enough, he spat. Kill him. Kill them all. The vampires moved to obey. Lyra felt something snap inside her. No, the word exploded from her. Not spoken, projected. Her empathy gift amplified by terror and rage and desperate love. Stop! Every vampire in the cathedral froze. Not Lucian, not Sterling, not Celeste. Just Alaric's forces. 20 vampires standing like statues, their eyes glazed, their wills overcome. Lyra stood. Her hands shook, but her voice was steady. Let him go. The 3 vampires holding Lucian released him. Come here. They walked to her, knelt at her feet. Alaric stared. How are you doing this? You wanted to know what I could do, Lyra said. Here's your answer. I can command them. All of them, because they're not loyal to you. They're afraid of you, and fear breaks easy. She turned to Alaric's forces, 20 vampires under her control. Leave. Go home. Forget this night. Forget Alaric. You're free. They left, walking out into the rain like sleepwalkers. Alaric lunged at her. Lucian intercepted. Faster than thought, this time there was no hesitation. Lucian's hand drove through Alaric's chest, fingers closing around his heart. This is for Nathaniel, for Isabella, for every life you destroyed with your manipulations. He pulled. Alaric's heart came free, black, pulsing, ancient. Alaric's eyes widened. He looked at Lyra. You could have been magnificent. I already am, Lyra said. Alaric crumbled, not to ash like younger vampires, to dust so fine it was almost smoke. 800 years of existence ending in seconds. The cathedral fell silent. Lucian stood holding Alaric's heart. It dissolved in his hand, turning to sludge. Then he turned to Lyra and collapsed. Lucian! Lyra ran to him, caught him before he hit the ground. He was bleeding from a dozen wounds. Silver burns, deep cuts, broken ribs. Even vampire healing couldn't keep up with that much damage. I'm okay, he said. His voice was weak. Just need a minute. You're not okay. Lyra looked at Sterling. We need to get him home. Now. Miss Winters. Sterling's voice was gentle. There's something you should know. Silver poisoning. If it reaches his heart, it won't. Lyra bit her wrist, the same place Lucian had bitten during the claiming. He gave me his blood. Now I give it back. She pressed her wrist to Lucian's mouth. Drink. Lucian's eyes widened. Lyra, no. Half-blood blood is powerful, I know. Drink. He did. The effect was immediate. His wounds began closing, faster than normal healing. The silver burns faded. Color returned to his face. When he pulled away, his eyes glowed brighter than she'd ever seen. What did you do? He whispered. Saved you. The way you saved me. Lucian pulled her close, buried his face in her neck. Thank you, he breathed. Thank you. They stayed like that for a long moment. 2 people who'd survived hell. Together. Then Sterling cleared his throat. Sir, we need to leave. The council will have felt Alaric's death. They'll be coming. Let them come, Lucian said. But he stood, pulling Lyra up with him. We have nothing to hide. They arrived at dawn, October 23rd. The council convened at the Ashford estate, all 12 members, minus 1. They sat in the great hall, faces grave. Some looked relieved. Others looked calculating. A few looked afraid. The head counselor spoke first. Alaric Voss is dead, destroyed by Lucian Ashford in defense of a claimed human. The council demands explanation. Lucian stood, Lyra beside him. She wore simple clothes but carried herself like royalty. Alaric kidnapped my companion, tortured her, attempted to force her to use her empathy gift for his conquest plans. I rescued her. He attacked. I defended. End of story. Not quite, another counselor said. We have testimony. Survivors from the cathedral. They claim Miss Winters commanded 20 vampires. Forced them to abandon their master. Is this true? Yes, Lyra said before Lucian could answer. I did. They were going to kill Lucian. I stopped them. With compulsion magic. Without training. Without control. The counselor leaned forward. You're dangerous, girl. So is everyone in this room, Lyra shot back. The difference is I use my power to protect, not to dominate. Murmurs rippled through the council. There's another matter, the head counselor said. We've been investigating Alaric's affairs, his correspondence, his financial records, and we've discovered something disturbing. He produced a folder, passed it to Lucian. Lucian opened it. His expression darkened. What is it? Lyra asked. Evidence, Lucian said quietly, that Alaric was working with your stepmother Vivian For 2 years, she fed him information about you, sold him your father's letters, and, he paused, she poisoned Edmund with vampire bane, murdered him. Lyra's world tilted. She'd known, Alaric had told her, but seeing the evidence, bank transfers, emails, autopsy reports showing vampire bane poisoning, made it real. Where is she? Lyra demanded. In custody, the head counselor said. We arrested her this morning, charged with conspiracy, theft, and murder. I want to see her. Lyra, Lucian began, I need to see her, please. The counselors exchanged looks, then nodded. They brought Vivian to a holding room in the Ashford estate basement. She wore handcuffs. Her perfect hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared. She looked smaller than Lyra remembered, diminished, but her eyes still held that calculating cruelty. Lyra, Vivian's voice was hoarse. Tell them this is a mistake. Tell them I didn't know what Alaric was, that he manipulated me. Lyra sat across from her. Lucian stood behind her chair, a silent support. You knew exactly what he was, Lyra said quietly. You sold him information about me, about my father's letters, about the locket. I needed the money. You embezzled $3 million from my inheritance. You didn't need anything. Vivian's mask cracked, just slightly. Your father loved you more than me. Everything was always about you, his precious Lyra. I gave him 5 years of my life, and he never looked at me the way he looked at your mother's picture. So you killed him. He was dying anyway. The vampire bane just accelerated things. Vivian leaned forward. You think you're better than me? You're not. You are just luckier, born with gifts you didn't earn, loved for existing. I had to fight for every scrap of approval, every moment of attention, and still it wasn't enough. You're right, Lyra said. You had to fight. And instead of fighting for something good, you fought to destroy, to take, to hurt. She stood. I'm done pitying you, Vivian. I'm done trying to earn your approval. You stole my father, my inheritance, my mother's locket, but you couldn't steal what mattered. Which is? My kindness, my integrity, the ability to look at myself in the mirror and not hate what I see. Lyra turned to leave. I hope prison teaches you something about consequences. Lyra, wait. But Lyra was already gone. 4 days later, October 27th, the council held a public tribunal. Not for Lyra or Lucian, for Vivian and Serafina. Seattle's elite filled the ballroom of the Fairmont Olympic Hotel. Humans and vampires mixing. Everyone who was anyone wanted to witness the downfall of the Winter's women. Lyra sat in the front row. Lucian beside her. Sterling stood behind them, a quiet presence. The council presented evidence. Bank records showing Vivian's embezzlement of $3 million from Edmund's estate. Emails proving her conspiracy with Alaric. Medical reports confirming Edmund's poisoning with vampire bane disguised as heart medication. In Serafina's case, the younger Winters had genuinely not known about the murder. The council's investigation confirmed she'd only discovered the embezzlement 6 months ago and had confronted her mother privately, threatening to go to the police if Vivian didn't stop. Vivian had manipulated her into silence with threats and lies. The verdict came swiftly. Vivian, 25 years. 2 counts of first-degree murder, embezzlement, conspiracy. Serafina, 2 years suspended sentence, accessory after the fact to financial fraud, probation. Vivian stood as they read the sentence. Her face was blank, empty, like she'd finally run out of masks to wear. Serafina cried quietly, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry I didn't do more. They led Vivian away in handcuffs. She never looked at Lyra, not once. But Serafina did, and mouthed 2 words, thank you. Lyra nodded. Forgiveness would take time, but acknowledgement was a start. After the trial, the council's head counselor approached Lyra. Miss Winters, or should I say Miss Ashford? I haven't taken his name, Lyra said, yet. The counselor smiled. The council has made a decision. Given your heritage, your father's royal bloodline, your empathy gift, your actions at the cathedral, we're officially recognizing you as half-blood royalty, with all the rights and protections that entails. What does that mean? It means you're untouchable. No vampire can harm you without council approval. You have a seat at the table if you want it, and you have the authority to establish your own territory. Lyra looked at Lucy and he nodded. Your choice. I don't want territory, Lyra said. I don't want power. I just want to help people, human and vampire. Then help. Start a foundation. Use your gift to bridge the gap between our worlds. The counselor extended his hand. We need people like you, Miss Winters. People who see both sides. Lyra shook his hand. I'll think about it. 6 months later, April 15th. Spring had come to Seattle. The rain softened to mist. Cherry blossoms bloomed in clouds of pink. The sounds sparkled under weak sunshine. Lyra stood in the garden of the old Winters estate, now transformed. A sign by the gate read, Haven House, a sanctuary for survivors. She wore her mother's locket, touched it out of habit. A reminder of where she'd come from, who she'd lost, who she'd become. Lucian appeared beside her. He'd stopped pretending months ago. No dark glasses, no cane, just himself, open and honest. Nervous, he asked. A little. Lyra looked at the house, at the people gathering inside. 5 women, 3 children. The first residents, all escaping situations that had tried to break them. What if I can't help them? You've already helped them, Lucian said. You gave them a place to heal. That's more than most people ever get. They walked toward the house together, through the garden where a memorial bench sat, engraved in memory of Edmund and Alara Winters, who loved beyond boundaries. Lyra paused, placed her hand on the cold stone. He'd be proud of you, Lucian said softly. How do you know? Because I am. Lucian took her hand. Lyra, 6 months ago you were invisible, underestimated, told you were worthless. And now look at you, running a foundation, recognized as royalty, saving lives with your gift. I'm still me. Exactly, you're still kind, still compassionate, still willing to see the good in people, even when they don't deserve it. He squeezed her hand. You didn't let the power change you. That's what makes you extraordinary. I had help. We all need help. Lucian's voice dropped. Lyra, the claiming bond, it's been 6 months. By vampire law, I can release you now if you want, set you free. You'd keep your status, your protections, but you wouldn't be tied to me anymore. Do you want to release me? No, ow. The word came out fierce. God, no, I want... He stopped, started again. I want you to stay. Not because of a bond, not because of obligation, but because you choose to, because you want to. Lyra looked at their joined hands, at the claiming mark on her wrist, faded but still visible. 6 months of partnership, friendship, something deeper neither of them had named yet. Lucian, for 600 years, you've been testing people to see if they'd disappoint you. Yes. And I'm the first one who didn't. Yes. So let me ask you something. She met his eyes, those impossible blue eyes that had seen centuries. Are you asking me to stay because I passed your test? Or because you love me? Silence. The world held its breath. Then Lucian smiled, soft and genuine and achingly vulnerable. I love you, he said. I've loved you since you threw yourself between me and that Ming vase, since you breathed with my mother and calmed her frenzy, since you looked at a monster and saw a man. His hand came up, cupping her face. I love you, Lyra Winters, not because you're an empath, not because you're royal, but because you're you, kind and brave and impossibly good. Lyra's vision blurred with tears. You're wrong about one thing, she said. What's that? You're not a monster. You're the best man I've ever known. She leaned into his touch. And I love you too. I've loved you since you bought back my mother's locket, since you saw me when everyone else looked through me, since you gave me a reason to stop being invisible. So you'll stay? I'll stay. She smiled through tears. Not because of the bond, because you're my home. You and Isolde and Sterling and this strange, beautiful life we're building together. Lucian kissed her, soft at first, then deeper. 600 years of loneliness ending in the taste of cherry blossoms and hope. When they pulled apart, the sun had broken through the clouds. Inside Haven House, lights burned warm and welcoming. Through the windows, Lyra could see the first residents gathering. Women who'd been told they were worthless. Children who'd been invisible. Just like she'd been. Come on, Lyra said, taking Lucian's hand. We have people waiting, a ribbon to cut, a sanctuary to open. Yes, ma'am, Lucian smiled. Whatever you need. I need you. She squeezed his hand. I need Isolde's wisdom, Sterling's precision, a team, a family. You have all of that, Lucian said. You've always had it. You just needed to see it. They walked toward Haven House together, past the memorial bench, past the garden where spring bloomed eternal, toward the mansion that had once been a prison and was now a promise. Cameras waited. Reporters, the mayor, council members, both human and vampire. Everyone wanted to witness the opening of Seattle's first human-vampire collaborative shelter. But Lyra barely saw them. She saw the 5 women standing in the doorway, wearing borrowed hope-like armor, looking at her with eyes that recognized a kindred spirit. Someone who'd survived, someone who'd refused to let cruelty make her cruel, someone who'd proven that the greatest power wasn't domination or wealth or even supernatural gifts. It was choosing, every single day, to be kind. Lyra cut the ribbon. Flashes popped. Applause erupted. "Welcome home," she said to the women, to the children, to everyone who'd ever been invisible. They smiled, and for the first time in their lives, they believed in safety. That evening, back at the Ashford estate, Lyra stood on the rooftop with Lucian. Rain fell softly, the kind of Seattle rain that felt like comfort, like home. Isolde was inside, healthy and laughing with Sterling over dinner, the cancer in a full remission. The frenzy episodes controlled by Lyra's regular empathy sessions. Vivian was serving her sentence, 25 years in a federal prison. Serafina was rebuilding, working, attending therapy, trying to become someone she could respect. And Lyra was exactly where she belonged. "For 600 years, you pretended not to see," she said to Lucian. "Pretended to be blind, tested people to see if they'd disappoint you." "I did. And now?" "Now," Lucian said, brushing rain from her face, "I see everything. And it's beautiful. You're beautiful. This life we're building is beautiful. And for the first time in centuries, I'm not afraid to look." Lyra smiled. "Good. Because I need you to keep looking, to keep seeing, not just me, but everyone we're helping, everyone who needs someone to believe they're worth more than their worst moments. I promise." He kissed her forehead. "I'll keep looking. As long as you're beside me. Always." They stood together as rain washed the city clean, as cherry blossoms bloomed in the dark, as the sound reflected stars that had witnessed centuries. And in Haven House, the Winters estate transformed. Lights burned in every window. Warm, welcoming, safe. Because one woman had refused to be invisible, had chosen kindness over bitterness, had proven that sometimes the greatest power isn't controlling others. It's seeing them, really seeing them, and helping them see themselves. Lyra Winters had been tested by life, by loss, by people who should have loved her but chose cruelty instead. And she'd passed every test, not by being perfect, but by being kind, by refusing to let pain make her cruel, by choosing every single day to be better than the people who'd hurt her. They'd called her worthless. They'd been wrong. She was priceless. And finally she knew it.